Erev Tov, welcome back. So last week we talked about why learn history. Today I want to take some time to discuss why are certain genres of history missing in the Sephardic world. And I wanted to start with a quote from somebody who we consider very dear over here in our Beit Midrash. During COVID, Chacham Yonatan gave, for those of you who remember, shiurim in the back of our porch every after Mincha and Shabbat from the book of Rabbi Yisrael Moshe Chazan. In the introduction, the Chacham Flower writes, he has this beautiful quote, and I'm going to read it to you in English. A shout out to Chacham Yonatan for putting out the. That was not the shout out you said, for putting out the links. But really, thank you. Thank you for getting the links out as well as the PDF. Hold on to that. That is going to be what our main class is about. I do want to give out a shout out to Sina Kane for the translation. The original is in Hebrew. In the introduction, if you open the book, you'll see it in Hebrew. I'm going to read it to you in English. So Chacham Flower is lamenting what we're going to be lamenting together the whole time today. He says, these matters are well known. There's almost nothing novel in them. Nonetheless, I saw it fit to write them in a book because it is a way of the Sephardi rabbis that their creations in all areas of Jewish thought, their outlook on Judaism in general, and about current issues in particular are unknown. So he's telling you, similar to the Ramchal, I'm not bringing you anything new. Simply, I'm bringing you ideas that, though they've already been spoken, are much unknown to the crowd today. Something terrible is taking place in regard to everything which is connected to the cultural, religious, and educational tradition of the Sephardi Jews in our times. He said there's a phenomenon here, and it's something awful. We touched on it last week with Rabbi Moshe David Gaon. Things that in the recent past were known to every rabbinic student are unknown today, even to those who are referred to as, quote, giants of the generation. We, who were raised on the ancient educational tradition, which was kept alive for generation after generation in the houses of the study of the Sephardim, see the new state of affairs with a heavy heart and despondent eyes. So things that yesterday you would stop a little child and ask, it was obvious that is what the Torah says, that's what Halakha says, that's what Jewish culture says. Today, even the greatest genius, and he puts it in quotes, doesn't know, given that topic, what he's supposed to think. The bridges with the past have been destroyed. The markers along the road have been uprooted. The pathways have been erased and covered with dirt. What will the young one who wishes to reveal his past do? Where will he turn? Who will show him the way? He says things that were once so obvious, if you see, every so often, unfortunately, there are hurricanes, there are tornadoes, there are natural disasters in places. And you look at the before and after pictures, where before there were beautiful buildings and museums and art and architecture and culture. Suddenly you look at the map, there's nothing there. He says, if you look at the Sephardic world, you have something similar, where there was something so magnificent, so glorious, so relevant to today's world, and yet somehow it has gotten destroyed by a tsunami, so much so that it almost is hard to trace back, where should I look? Where should I find it? And I want to talk about why. Okay? Now, today I want to talk about why from a very particular lens. For another class, I want to talk about a different lens, which is much more somber, much more malicious, but that's not for today. Today I want to introduce you to a character, much less the character, much more his writings. So we're going to have Bezrat Hashem time to talk about him in depth, who he was. But today I want to walk you through his introduction to a book that he wrote called Migdolei Yisrael, from the giants of the Jewish people, written by Chacham Meir Mazuz. By show of hands, have we heard that name here before? Maybe?
Yeah.
Elchanan, what do you know?
There's a few Mazuzes.
Okay.
Rav Shalom.
Masas. Okay, very good.
But I've heard the name Mazuz before.
Okay, so I'm gonna introduce.
And
I believe Bnei Brak. He was a Rosh Yeshiva. Passed away like a year ago, maybe.
That is correct. Let me show you a picture, tell you a little bit who he is. And then in his own words, I'm going to let you, one, see what a real Sephardic Chacham is. Two, an understanding of what happened. What was this tsunami? How did it all get erased? And is there hope for us to really get it back? So I want to show you a picture. For those of you who are online, you do have it. This is a picture of Chacham Meir Mazuz. Characteristically smiling. In addition to being a brilliant scholar, an extremely great sense of humor, a little bit quirky. I know sometimes on Shabbat, Chacham Yonatan, those of you on Shabbat, he brings certain gematriot very often that are almost outlandish, right? Yafeh, the Bamba.
I know.
Now, to be fair, if he was only somebody who made gematriot, so then I would say it doesn't carry so much weight, but the genius is in his classes, in his yeshiva. I want to tell you a little about him. Rabbi Meir Mazuz was born in March 27, 1945, and passed away, like my mother-in-law said, very, very recently. On the 19th of April, 2025, it was Shabbat, and unfortunately, he passed away. He established in Bnei Brak the yeshiva called Kisei Rachamim. What is unique about this yeshiva is that it's a classically Sephardic yeshiva, meaning, in addition to having a coffee stand like all the yeshivot where everybody drinks coffee, 8 hours of their 10-hour learning, they actually produce Talmidei Chachamim. What do I mean by Talmidei Chachamim? Harav Mazuz was insistent on students also becoming leaders. You need to publish, you need to write, you need to sing. You need to understand that if you're going to be sitting here learning, it's only because you're going to be giving back to the communities. He was proficient when it comes to diktuk, so the grammar of the Hebrew language. And so much so that in the beginning years when I was married, I never understood, and forgive me, I come from a world where diktuk, though we learned it, they didn't matter. In fact, the first time Rabbi told me something, he said, you're not pronouncing the dagesh in the word. I said, yeah, that's okay. I don't even pronounce the whole word correctly. Who cares about the little dot? And I said, God understands whatever you say. And that was the attitude that I grew up with. Unfortunately, it's inaccurate. You would never say that about any other language. If somebody spoke to you in English and they put the wrong stress on the word in the wrong place, you would correct them automatically, right? If somebody told you, I'm going to the party, you would say, no, it's party. I remember when I was very little, when 9/11 happened, for the first time in my life, we went down the block. We didn't have a TV, but we went down. Mrs. Lubling, she should rest in peace. She had a TV and a bunch of plants in her house. So we came and we sat in front of the TV, but it didn't have sound because she didn't like sound. So we were reading the screen, and I kept on asking my sister, what is debris? They keep saying there's a bunch of debris falling from the sky. Now, I didn't know the word is debris, but if you've never heard the word, it reads like debris. Yeah. So it's not true that we don't care about accuracy. Somehow we in the Jewish community have been taught that applies to all other languages aside for Hebrew. Harav Mazuz was extremely particular. You'll see a little bit even in his piece that we're going to do today, where he starts picking on different things of if it's the language of God and you want to take yourself seriously, so it matters. He was born in Tunis. Now, we're going to look at the map in a couple of classes from now, but suffice it to say that Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, they're all on the northern rim of Africa. They're all very, very different communities, as we'll see. But they all share borders and common language, common chachamim. People traveled back and forth. But his family was from there. His father was a dayan, Harav Matzliach Mazuz. He was a dayan over there. He was also...
In the book that boys prepared to I read it from,
the
one you used,
the Ish Matzliach.
Ish Matzliach, named
Yeah.
after his father.
Yeah.
His thing. When you said his father's name, is he also a judge in a Muslim?
Oh, Yafeh Mod. You want to say the story? Remember it?
Yeah.
So come, quick. Go, Elchanan's going to tell you a story about Harav Matzliach Mazuz.
I don't know if I remember.
You remember it. Come.
Okay.
Come to the screen a minute. Okay, tell them the story.
Harav Matzliach Mazuz, he once ruled against.
Okay, so he was a dayan during the day, and what was he at night?
At night, he was a judge in a Muslim court,
Yafeh.
And one day he ruled against an Arab man, and once he left the courtroom, the Arab man stabbed him or something like
The
that.
Arab man stabbed him to death, and that is when the whole family, Harav Mazuz's family, said maybe living here in Tunisia is not the best place for us. Let's make Aliyah to Israel, Chazak u'Baruch. And that's where they settled, and really up until recently. So we're talking about April 2025, is just a couple of months ago. Harav Mazuz was giving shiurim, writing books. One of the most beautiful books that they published post his death is his diaries. If you can get your hands on his diaries, you will see what the profoundness of a chacham's heart looks like. Aside for the beautiful handwriting, the thoughts that his head thought and the emotions that his heart felt is something incredible to discover. In his book, which is about history, it's a history book about Talmidei Chachamim, giants of the Jewish people, he has a fascinating introduction. Now, I have to tell you, I'm not a student of Rav Mazuz, so I can't tell you I sign off on everything he says or doesn't say, not in his book nor in his politics, but I want to walk you through the journey. It's a couple of pages. You're going to have to hold your head on tight, but I will walk you through it, and we will get a very interesting understanding of why. Why is it that when we're talking about history, there is a half of the Jewish nation that we have tremendous amount of books about, tremendous literature. Every school tells their tales, and yet what about the other half? Why is it missing? So let's look together, if you can. Open to the PDF that you have.
Aside from holding your head, you have to hold your sign. Rabbi Mazuz is one of the funniest rabbis to ever write in the world. Hilarious.
It's true. Okay, so let's look at Mavo, his introduction. For those of you online, for those of you online, you have the PDF connected. Do you want to use the book?
Do you do that?
Not really. I'll take it from you when I need it. Yep, you can use it. Okay. He starts off with a quote. Ha'osek b'maaseh tzadikim, a person who's involved in telling stories of the tzadikim, the holy saints of the Jewish people. Ke'osek b'maaseh merkava. It's like he's busy involved in the holiest works of the Merkava. Kach nimsar mishem Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov Zatzal. These are the words that were given over by the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. V'hagaon Bal Chazon Ish. And the Gaon, the Chazon Ish Zatzal, Haya Omer, he would say, Sefer HaMusar HaTov Bioter, the best book of Musar, you want to learn how to work on your midot, Hu Sefer Shemesaper Al Gdolei Yisrael. That is the book that has stories about the giants of the Jewish people. Mizeh, from this, Nafotz HaMinhag Etzel Achenu HaAshkenazim. ב-200 השנים האחרונות, לסרטט בעת אמן תולדות גדולי ישראל, שקידתם בתורה, גדלותם במידות, עם מעשיות וסיפורים נעים המושכים את לבב הקורא. From this idea, where the Baal Shem Tov says, when you learn about stories of the tzaddikim, it's like you're delving into the greatest mystics of the world. The Chazon Ish says, you want to learn Musar, go learn Sipurei Tzaddikim. From here is born an entire genre in Ashkenaz. It's codified by the Hasidim, but it spreads everywhere, where storytelling about the tzaddikim, about the giants, is the number one way to not just embed tradition, but to also get emunah, to get faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, if you think he's making it up, because what does he know about Achenu Ashkenazim? I have to note, almost every Sephardic book, when they talk about Ashkenazim, they always say Achenu Ashkenazim. Our brothers are Ashkenazim. I would like to give musar to the people that I come from and it's still a part of. I've never seen that yet on the other side of the table. I've seen other things. I've never seen that. Suffice it to say, I've seen other things. If you look at how the Munkacher Rebbe used to call the Sifaradim, it will remind you of the 10 plagues, the second one. Okay? So I want to read to you, because this is from a very interesting book written by Rabbi Dr. Aaron Wertheim, originally published in Hebrew, called Halachot v'Halichot HaChasidim. It is then translated by Shmuel Himmelstein, into English. This Rabbi Dr. Aaron Wertheim was originally from Romania, came over in the 1900s, became a rabbi in Brooklyn, got a degree in Pennsylvania in the University of, I don't recall, And what he did was he really codified much of the customs and laws of Hasidim. It's a fascinating resource. I want to read to you a little bit about some of the approbations. Oh, I want to read to you some of the approbations that they gave to his book. Now, he himself, interestingly enough, learned by the Soloveitchiks. So still back in Europe, the Soloveitchiks were not necessarily Hasidim. But if you trace his lineage, both him and his wife come from, and I've never heard of these Hasidim. I'm going to do some research. The Benderi Hasidim. It sounds like today we have the Rebbe, the Philadelphia Rebbe, the Boston Rebbe. I don't know where Bender is, but he comes from a Hasidic lineage. Though he himself is not a Hasid. Now, in the beginning, he has a few introductions. I'm going to read two of them. The third I will skip. This is from Harav Agon, the president of Yeshivas Britsk, Rav Aaron Soloveitchik. He wrote, the late distinguished Hasidic and rabbinic scholar, Rabbi Dr. Aaron Wertheim, scion of a distinguished Hasidic and rabbinical family, and disciple of my father, that's Zatzal, Rav Moshe Soloveitchik, has written a very thorough, historical, and analytical book on the history and philosophy of Hasidut. Halachot v'halichot b'Hasidut. Anyone who wants to have an insight and perspective in the philosophical and halachic approach of Hasidut should read this book. I found the book especially interesting in light of the comparison between the halachic views of the Gaon of Vilna on one hand and Hasidut on the other. You then have on the other side of the aisle a little note of appreciation by the Tolner Rebbe, who was also professor at Harvard University, Rabbi Yitzchak, the Grand Rabbi Yitzchak Twersky. Again, another interesting dynasty to look into. So he writes, the late Rabbi Dr. Aaron Wertheim, scion of a distinguished rabbinical Hasidic family, has written an informative analysis of a most important but neglected topic in Hasidism. This comprehensive book, Law and Custom in Hasidism, which fills a gap in contemporary scholarly literature, will interest students of halacha, as well as history of religion and religious thoughts. It's important because you understand that what I'm going to read to you now is codified, even if it's not Hasidic law, it's certainly in that section. So he has a little chapter in section 6, titled Tales of the Tzaddikim. I'm going to read it to you in English. He has the same thing in his Hebrew book, titled Sipurei Ma'asiot al HaTzaddikim, the telling of tales of the Tzaddikim. He says the Hasidim had a particular love for stories about their Tzaddikim, and they almost made it obligatory to tell or listen to these stories at certain fixed times. These stories were thought to have the mysterious power of aiding those who participated in telling and hearing them. The founder of Hasidism, the Baal Shem Tov, would gather together groups of simple people in the markets and streets and would tell them stories, using this device to draw them to their Father in heaven. His disciples, too, would from time to time tell a story and would later interpret and find it in it all types of secrets regarding the service of God and the future of their lives. It is said that the first time, don't get stuck on the names, Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk came to the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov told him the story of an ox and a plow. Also present were the following students, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef of Polnaya and the Maggid of Mezrich. The youngest, Rabbi Mendel, understood only that which had befallen him until then. So with the insight of a story of an ox and a plow, Rabbi Mendel was able to understand everything that happened from his life before. Rabbi Yaakov Yosef understood half, and the Maggid understood everything. Many years later, when Reb Mendel became seriously ill and his Hasidim stood around him and wept, he girded himself and whispered, "Don't be afraid. From the story of the Baal Shem Tov that he told me, I know that I will yet travel to Eretz Yisrael." When he recovered and set out for Eretz Yisrael, he visited Rabbi Yaakov Yosef on the way, and the old man asked him, "Do you remember the story of the ox and the plow?" He answered, "I remember." "And do you know how much of it you understand now?" Reb Mendel answered with a little sigh. He said, "I understand less than half." Thus, the stories of the wonders of the tzaddikim were carried and sanctified from generation to generation. Especially known are the mystical stories of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov's daughter, and the stories of the Shbala Zayda, or the Saba of Shbala, who was Rabbi Nachman's opponent. in which the Hasidim found remarkable secret meaning. Just as there had been Derush interpretations on the stories of Rabba Bar Chana of the second generation of the Amoraim, as found in the Bava Batra. So you do find in a certain section of the Gemara, there are tons and tons of stories. That is how significant Hasidim felt their stories were on par to the Amoraim. We have already explained elsewhere, and he sends you off, that the Hasidim were not advocates of studying large groups and limited themselves to learning with one or two people. Okay, and then he continues on. They believed strongly that with these stories, they were strengthening their belief in God. Okay, when it came to relating stories about tzaddikim, on the other hand, so unlike their learning, the storytelling of tzaddikim, and this is a custom that continues still today. So for example, in my Chassidut, my father is one of the most profound storytellers that on different occasions will come and they will share stories to a crowd of 5,000 people for over 2 hours, where everybody is jotting down, spellbound, every detail down to the last date and sneeze and move, the story details. Growing up, every Shabbat we would get in the mail, there is a pamphlet. It's called the Bracha and Shtub, which means the blessing in the house. If you open it, so in the front it tells you the Luach HaZmanim, the times, right? myzmanim.com, but in print. And then a bunch of stories, all the Hilulot of that week, all the stories of the Rebbes. And so I used to love listening to my mother read. She has a very melodious, beautiful voice. Every week after we ate the Chamin, my mother would read to us for about an hour and a half. I had 2 siblings, unfortunately, who hated hearing Sipurei Tzadikim. And miraculously, every time she started to read, they suddenly needed to use the restroom. So they would disappear for 2 hours and we would sit there. Why? They believed strongly that with these stories, they were strengthening their belief in God and His true servants. And this belief eventually turned into an obligation to tell a story of the Baal Shem Tov every Motzei Shabbat. So if you've been somewhere and they say, no, say a story, this is where it comes from. So great was the belief of the later tzaddikim in the mysterious powers of the Hasidic stories that they said, quote, when we, heaven forbid, are in distress and are unable to utilize the actions, prayers, and the kavanot, the different intentions of the Baal Shem Tov and his disciples, that the Baal Shem Tov and his disciples would use at such a time, it is enough for us to tell the story of how they did this, and God will help us. You have here born a fascinating genre, where in every culture we have stories. But over here, the storytelling becomes so central to the faith, to the mysticism, to your connection to God, that it becomes its own category. In fact, if you look at the books Sipurei Tzadikim, Sipurei Chasidim, by Harav Shlomo Yosef Zev, in his opening, he has a similar quote where he echoes the same idea. He says, Torat HaChasidut, hi ha'halacha shel HaChasidut. So the Torat HaChasidut, that's the law of the Chasidut. But Sipurei HaChasidim, hem ha'agada shelo. But the stories, that's all the commentary. And how in the world can you read a Torah without commentary? I want to take you back to Arav Mazuz. So he says, V'achen, we see this genre is born by our brothers, the Ashkenazim. V'achen, kinat soferim tarbe chokhmah. The jealousy that we see, it increases, and he's being sarcastic. He says, the jealousy that we see by other people who are busy writing things makes us also increase our wisdom. V'lo achad, v'lo shnayim migdolei Yisrael, sipru, and it's not 1 or 2 from the giants of the Jewish people, sipru shezachu la'alot v'lhitalot b'torah v'yirat shamayim, v'mipnei sheshivu le'eneihem dmuto shel gaon mesuyam, שתיקו אותו ושאפו שחיכו, sorry, there's an error, it says, it's a, שחיכו אותו ושאפו להגיע אליו. There were many of the recent leaders of the Jewish world who, when you ask them, how did you get to such greatness? They said, it's because in our minds, we constantly thought of the great image of this holy, righteous person and the stories about him, and all we wanted to do is emulate him. אם קריאתך למשל ספר Eliot Eliyahu. So if you read the books of the Gaon of Vilna, or Sefer Toldot Adam, from the Gaon Rabbi Zalman מווילנה, וכדומה, תתעורר בך תשוקה לוהטת. לאמור, מדוע לא אהיה גם אני כמותם? You'll read these books and you say, I wish I was like them. בבחינת, מתי יגיעו למעשה אבותיי? You're going to fall into this category of, wow, when am I actually going to be like those? Umnam, liot kamotam mamash אפשר, even though to be just like them is not actually possible. כי נשגבו דרכיהם מדרכנו כגובה השמיים על הארץ, because really their greatness is like trying to say, I want to reach heaven. ולפעמים, גם החיקוי מוביל לתוצאה הפוכה. We're going to talk about this at length in a different class. He says sometimes this reverence that we create, where they're so great and we're so lowly, it actually has the adverse effect. Instead of saying, well, I want to be like them, it says, I am hopeless. We're going to focus on this much more in another class. כמו שקרה לצדיק אחד, he says, just like it happened to one of the tzadikim, שרצה לחכות את מנהגו של הגר"א, לבלוע מאכלו מדי יום ביומו בלי ללוס. He said he wants to be a copycat of the Gaon Mivilna, who they claim he didn't eat his food. Why should he eat his food and enjoy his food? He would just take big bites and swallow it. So what did the student do? He decided he's going to follow the same thing. וחלה בדלקת הגרון, וסבל מחלות שונות, ונפטר בכיסוך שנים רחמנא ליצלן. He said the student copied him. He ended up getting a severe infection in his throat, and after suffering, he just passed away. או אדם יתחכה אחרי מנהגו של הגאון מווילנה, לישון אך שעתיים ביממה. Or they say about the Gaon of Vilna, that he only slept 2 hours a day. בלי ספק, תוך כמה חדשים, יובל לאשפוז בבית החולים, ושם משן שעות הרבה. He says, I promise you, if the person's going to try to emulate the Gaon Mivilna and sleep only 2 hours. Oh, yeah, we're going to get it. He says, bivadai, this person, he's going to sleep for 2 hours a day. And he's going to end up going to the hospital to some rehab, and there he's going to sleep for months on end. ושמעתי מידידנו רבי יעקב, עצויד, או עצייד, השם ישמרהו, שהרב יחזקאל אברמסקי. So he heard, בשם his friend, who heard from Rabbi Yecheskel Abramsky, אמר לנכדו, he told his grandson, רצונך להיות יחזקאל אברמסקי? You want to be like me? Now, Rabbi Yecheskel Abramsky was one of the giants of Ashkenaz. He says, you want to be like me? תישן 9 שעות ביממה. Sleep 9 hours every single day. כששאלו לפשר דבריו, when somebody השיב שהוא מוכרח לפי בריאות גופו, לישון 9 שעות. כי סבל הרבה בהיותו בגלות בסיביר, ומצא בריאותו היה רופף מאוד. Somebody asked him, why do you sleep so many hours a day? He said, I'm going to be very honest. When I was in Siberia and Russia, it took its toll on my body, and if I don't sleep 9 hours a day, I can't function. He said, ובכל זאת, זכה למה שזכה בהיותו שומר על ט"ו שעותיו הנשארות כבבת עין. He said, you know how I got to where I got? So I slept 9 hours a day. But all the other hours a day that I was awake, I didn't spend on TikTok. לבד, ועמד מהם אף דקה אחת. He said, I didn't even 1 minute I didn't waste. כיוצא בזה, אומרים בשם האדמו"ר רבי בונים מפשיסחה, in this similar vein, they say from Reb Simcha Bunim of Pshischa, he would say, אם ישאלו אותי בשמיים, if when I come up to heaven, they're going to ask me, מדוע לא היית כאברהם, יצחק ויעקב? Why weren't you like Avraham Avinu? Why weren't you like Yitzchak? Sarah, Rivka? He said, אענה בפשטות, כי אינני אברהם, יצחק ויעקב. I'm going to answer them very simply, I'm not Avraham, יצחק ויעקב. אבל, אם ישאלו אותי, מדוע לא היית כפי שבונים יכול להיות? זו באמת שאלה גדולה. He said, but if they'll ask me, why weren't you like Rabbi Bunim? Well, that's a good question. Again, he is trying to drive home the message, and we're going to see in a minute. So these are the outliers from what the genre is. But these outliers are telling us, hold on, what is this copycat society? What is this glorification of crazy behavior that may or may not have worked for one individual? And Reb Simcha Bunim says it doesn't even make sense. After 120, nobody's going to ask you, why were you not like them? The question is going to be, why were you not like yourself? Why weren't you the best version of you? ובכל זאת, he says, okay, but even so, ציווינו חז"ל לומר, our Chazal, Chachamim do tell us, we have to ask, מתי יגיעו מעשיי למעשי אבותיי? When are my actions going to replicate those of my forefathers? הכיצד? Okay, so what does it actually mean? לא אמרו חז"ל, מתי אהיה כאבותיי, אלא יגיעו מעשיי. You see, our Chachamim didn't ask us, when are you going to be a copy of our great giants? Our Chachamim were careful with the words. They said, when are your actions going to reflect your understanding of what our avot were and what you want to strive to be. בנגיע בעלמא, מתי אוקיי, עיקר לשאוף להגיע אל על, כי עורך חיים היא למעלה על משכיל. למען סור משאול מטה ודברים עתיקים. This is a little side note. He said it's really important. It's important that when you're learning, to understand that nobody is asking you to be something else as much as the best version of you. Listen to this. He says, "Mekanim anu b'acheinu Ashkenazim." But what can we do? We're still jealous. We're jealous of our Ashkenazi brothers. שכותבים ספרים שלמים על תולדות הרבנים שלהם. They write books full about their rabbis. פרטים ופרטי פרטים על דרכם בקודש. לעתים ממקורות מוסמכים, ולעתים כיד כישרונו של הסופר הטובה עליו. אבל מעמידים את החכם המדובר כמו חי לפנינו. He said, we're jealous. The Ashkenazi world has bookshelves of their rabbis with details down to the last detail. Sometimes the details are quite detailed, and other times there was a very talented writer. And that very talented writer had a fantastic way of presenting things to our imagination, so much so that it makes us jealous. Bireinu, he says, in our city, in Ijirba, in the little island of Jerba, Bidrom Tunisia. So again, we're going to look at these maps, but in the southern part of Tunisia, you'll see there's a little island. This island was known for having Kohanim, Chachamim. We're talking about Jews, mamash. He says, Nagu, in my little island, Nagu adarshanim bidrashoteim ubesipurei masiyot asher besivreim lesaper tamid al chachmei Ashkenaz. He said, growing up, you should know, all the rabbis, all the darshanim, whenever they would tell stories, they always told stories about the rabbis of Ashkenaz. ועל הרוב אומרים סיפורי חסידים, and not only Ashkenaz, but very specifically, stories about the Hasidim. אותות ומופתים מהבעל שם טוב ותלמידיו ותלמידי תלמידיו, amazing, incredible miracles and the ways that, from who? Particularly the Hasidim, the Baal Shem Tov and his disciples. ומרגלה בפום רבנן, לא המדרש העיקר, אלא המעשה. Our Chachamim say that all the theory is not so important, rather the action. Rather, they would homiletically say, no, lo ha-midrash ha'ikar, all the learning is not so important, el ha-ma'aseh, meaning the stories. If you want to know what to focus on in Judaism, really it's just about the stories. Ken misupar al ha'gaon Rabbi...
I don't know how to read.
Mikix, this is too many consonants. His name is Rabbi Mikix Hushli Zatzal. Correct me. שהיה מביא בדרשותיו מעשה ארוך ומרתק כל השומעים קישה שלמה. He says there was one of the darshanim, the speakers in my community, he would say stories, they were so beautiful, they were so enchanting, people would just sit and listen and their eyes and their mouths would be open. בילדותי, he says in my childhood, בזמן שאנו מתעייפים מללמוד, היה לי שעשוע לקרוא בסיפורי הבעל שם טוב. When I would get tired from learning, I loved taking books and reading the books from the stories of the בעל שם טוב. זכורני שהיו סיפורי חסידים ידועים לנו גם במקורם בלשון הקודש וגם בתרגום לערבית. He said we had them both in Hebrew as well as they were translated into the local vernacular of Arabic. אין אישה בג'ירבה שלא ידע על הבעל שם טוב ותלמידיו. There was no lady in Jerba who didn't know about the בעל שם טוב and his students. מתוך סיפורים שתורגמו לערבית בספרי חכמי ג'ירבה, because the חכמים translated the books from the חסידים. כשהיינו פוגשים לפעמים מישהו באמצע הסיפור שהוא היה מתנגד לחסידות, so every story of Hasidim always has an antagonist. The antagonist is always going to be a מתנגד, somebody who's an opponent. He said, when we would find that opponent, לא יכולנו לעכל את זה. We couldn't stomach this. מה טיבה של התנגדות זו? איך אפשר להתנגד לחסידות? How could it be that somebody in the world is opposed to חסידות? עד היום, he said, even till today, בשיחות המוסר הניתנות בישיבה, אנו משמיעים כפעם בפעם סיפורים ורעיונות חסידים. He said, even today, in any yeshiva you're going to go, when they want to give a good speech on musar, you're going to find a Hasidic story that's snuck in somehow, somewhere, to point the lesson. Now, he's referring in particularly to his yeshiva, Kisei Rachamim, meaning he's not opposed to this practice. גם בכל מוצאי שבת, כשהיינו לומדים שיעור בעין יעקב, היינו מסיימים בסיפור מהבעל שם טוב ותלמידיו. מספר סיפורי חסידים. He says, you should know, Motzei Shabbat, we would learn, like all good Jews, from the En Yaakov. And then afterwards, like we read was the custom by the Hasidim to say stories of Hasidut, Motzei Shabbat. He said we would use this book, okay, this contemporary book, סיפורי חסידים, שאין כמותם לנטוע אמונה צרופה בקרב השומעים. Because there's no better way to engrave in a person's heart אמונה than these stories. אמנם, however, and this is where it starts. מורנו, הרב הגאון, רבי חלפון משה כהן. He says, my teacher, רבי חלפון משה כהן. Hold on to that name, because we're going to one day do a deep dive on him. But for now,
Rabbi Chafon Moshe HaKohen writes that in Jerba, in his generation, there were 400 Talmidei Chachamim in his city. Don't have that number anywhere else.
wow. הרגיש בחוש המיוחד שלו, in his particular sensitivity, that was unique to him, שכמה מסיפורי חסידים הם דר גוזמה ומשל בעלמא. He felt that the stories in the book, סיפורי חסידים, many of the stories were definitely exaggerations or really just some kind of allegory, some kind of fantasy story. ולכן, and therefore, נזהר בדרשותיו וספריו להביא סיפורים רק מרבותינו חכמי התלמוד ומספרים הנאמנים. He was very particular to only bring stories that were verified both from the Talmud as well as our Chachamim that we knew these stories to be true. Or מרבנו ג'רבה אשר שמע אוזנו ממקור נאמן, or from the rabbis of his own city where he knew that it was a first-hand account that was accurate. וכפי ששמעתי מדידנו הרב רפאל כהן, חתן בנו שלו, okay, שבספר יקר הערך מהרב
I don't know how to say those names.
איתוגי כהן, also from Jerba, לא באו סיפורי נפלאות מהחסידים אשר לאחינו אשכנזים. He said, in his book, יקר הערך, you're not going to find any of these stories. This genre doesn't exist. Why? כי אם רובו ככולו סיפורי חז"ל בתלמוד שמתורגמים לערבית, וסיפורי חכמי ג'רבה וכיוצא. He said, in this book, יקר הערך, you're not going to find not even one story about Hasidim. Rather, you're going to find stories that are verified from the Talmud or stories from the local Chachamim of Jerba that were first-hand accounts. He said, in parentheses, he writes, בילדותי, when I was younger, ראיתי את הספר הנ"ל. I saw this book, יקר ערך, ונפלאתי על כך שהוא שונה מכל ספרי חכמי ג'רבה הידועים לנו. And it was interesting to me that this was different than all the other books that I saw. המלאים על גדותיהם מסיפורי הבעל שם טוב ותלמידיהם. And I was confused. It was interesting to me that this particular book didn't have any stories of the בעל שם טוב. ואמר שאורך הספר היה מרן, מורנו הרבי חלפון משה כהן. And when they told me who is the author of this book, רבי חלפון משה כהן, והוא הקפיד להביא אך ורק דברים המבוססים על יסוד נאמן. He was extremely particular to bring things that were accurate. אבל סיפורי החסידים, כך אמר, חלק גדול מהם לא היה ולא נברא, רק משל היה. And he felt very strongly that the stories of the Hasidim, at least a part of them, they never were, they never will be, and they were simply metaphorical stories to be told. עד כמה קלה מורנו הרב רבי משה כהן זצ"ל, בהגדרתו זו על אמת, די לציין מה שכתוב בספר שם הגדולים החדש. He says, I want to illustrate to you just how much this point was important to Rabbi Moshe Cohen, Rabbi Chalfon Moshe Cohen, that in the book written by Larav Aaron Valdin, זצ"ל, ככה הנראה היה חסיד גור. He says he seems to be a חסיד גור. בערך, so he writes the following. He's quoting from Rabbi Aaron Valdin in the book of Rabbi Moshe Cohen. He says, בערך, no, I'm sorry. He's quoting...
Rabbi Aaron Walden, he's quoting from it, that he wrote about the Baal Shem Tov the following.
Correct. Yes, but Rabbi Chalfon is quoting it. No.
He's saying this is how...
נכון, you're right. That is it. יפה. He says, בערך רבי ישראל בעל שם טוב.
The entry on Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov.
This is hard for me to read, and I'll share with you in a minute why. In the entry about Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov, he writes the following. He says, שהתמרמר שם על מחבר הספר שבחי הבעל שם טוב. He writes the following entry, שערבב סיפורים זרים ובדויים עם סיפורים אמיתיים. He says the author of the שבחי הבעל שם טוב mixed in stories that were completely foreign to the Baal Shem Tov, that were made up from his own heart. For example, he says, Ben HaDvarim Katuv B'Sefer Hanal Shahorei. He says, for example, one of the stories that it says in the Shivchei HaBaal Shem Tov is Shahorei HaBaal Shem Tov Hayu Nifradim Le'et Ziknatem Karba Asrei Shana. That for the last 14 years of the Baal Shem Tov's parents' lives, they were separated. V'chi hu lo nolad mizivug ish v'isha. Could it be that the Baal Shem Tov... and that he wasn't born. And he wasn't born from a man and woman. I don't want to, in your mind, draw parallels, but you're going to do them. Rachmana litzlan. Mahai da'ata shibishata v'klishta. He says, how could you even write such things? But that's what they write. If you look into the books, not only is it stories that are not accurate, but these are stories that are outright extremely heretical. וגרם לקורא שיאמר עליהם מה שאמר יעקב ליוסף על חלמו. And anybody who reads this stuff, they say the following in their head. When Yosef HaTzadik, we're coming up in a few weeks, he has his dreams, he comes to his father and he says, והנה השמש והירח ו11 כוכבים משתחווים לי. He says, I dreamt that the moon, the stars, and the moon, the sun, and the 11 stars all bow down to him. Uperesh Rashi, and Rashi over there says, כשם שאי אפשר בעמך, שהרי כבר מתה, ככה שקר. Yaakov Avinu turns to Yosef, he says, Yosef HaTzadik, you're dreaming that the sun, the moon, and 11 stars are all bowing to you. But if there's any symbolism where I'm the sun, your mother's the moon, your mother already died. And just like if she already died, so did your dream. The whole dream is sheker. It can't be true because the whole thing doesn't make sense. When you see these stories in the books of the Hasidim, the Baal Shem Tov's parents were not together, yet somehow he was born. Yet he says it puts into question everything that's written there. Ken raiti katuv b'shem kama Hasidim. He says, I've also seen written by a few of the Hasidim, שמותר לספר סיפורי נפלאות על אדמו"ר מסוים, בין שהיו ובין שלא היו. You're allowed to say stories about any chacham, any tzaddik, whether they were accurate and they happened or not. Why? ממה נשך? Either way. אם היו, הרי טוב. ואם לא היו, על כפנים בוודאי יכול היה לעשותם. If the story actually happened, that's great. If the story didn't happen, so what? It could have happened. ובימינו נעשתה החסידות למין ספרות. וכל המרבה להפליג בסיפוריו, כי יד הדמיון הטובה עליו, הרי זה משובח. It's turned into almost this genre of fiction where whatever the author thinks, whatever he wants to embellish on, whatever his mind and his imagination can think of, הרי זה משובח. Isn't that great? It's wonderful. Because if it's true, it's good. If it's not true, even better. על חלק מבעלי הדמיון יש ללמד זכות. He said, okay, so some of those people with good imaginations, we have to maybe find a way to justify it. שחשבו לפי תומם, כי המטרה מקדשת את האמצעים. It could be they thought that the end justifies the means. אולם, לא זו דרך התורה, ותורת אמת כתיב בה. It could be they said, what's our goal? Our goal is we want people to have emunah. We want people to have faith. We want people to believe in tzaddikim. So who cares if the accuracy of the story isn't there? The goal is to get people to believe. But that's not true. That's not the way of the Torah. The end doesn't justify the means. How you get there matters. If you steal $10 million from the government so you could donate it to the Beit HaKnesset, you're just a thief. I know in some places you're the president, but not over here, because the end doesn't justify the means. סיפור אחד אמיתי יכול לעורר בתשובה יותר מעשרות סיפורים המרחפים על כנפי הדמיון. One true story, one accurate story, you know how much more emunah could bring a person to? Than thousands of stories that are floating somewhere in your imagination. ורבנו הרמב"ם ז"ל יוכיח שכמו שטרח במורה נבוכים, לארוז דעות וטענות הכופרים והפילוסופים בקדמות העולם, כן באותו מידה טרח לסתור גם הוכחות מזויפות של כת המדברים, so it's a רשע ויש, שבאו לעזור כביכול לאמונה במופתים משובשים. If we look at Rabbeinu Harambam, he writes in his Moreh Nevuchim how much he tries to take the false faiths away. And he tries to uproot them. And he says, מידה זו של חיפוש האמת הייתה נטועה בנשמתם של מורנו הרב רבי כלפון משה כהן ז"ל, ואבותיו מדורות עולם. This is not something new. The Rambam tells us, just because they are philosophers and they are speakers who will take your imagination, play with it to give you false ideas and beliefs, even if the ideas and beliefs are true, their methodology is dangerous. And the Rambam works very, very hard to eradicate that from our society. Haramazu says that's what Rabbi Khalfon Moshe Cohen, as well as all the generations before, felt very strongly about the historicity of retelling stories. נזכיר לדוגמה את אבי, סבו הגאון רבי שאול כהן ז"ל, שבכל חיבוריו חיפש תמיד את הפשט הפשוט, ולא היסס לכתוב על המדרש מסוים. This is beautiful, this piece. Listen. He says, I want to quote you from Avi Sabo, from his father. The father of Rabbi Moshe, the father of Rabbi Khalfon Moshe Cohen, it's a mouthful, whose grandfather was Rabbi Shaul Cohen. I'm mixing this up here. He says, Naskil Dugma at Avi, his father, his
grandfather.
Yafe. Chaver, these names and these, we're going to have to get right.
That's the father of the grandfather of Rabbi Khalfon Moshe Cohen.
Yafe. Okay. חיפש תמיד את הפשט בפשוטו. He's going to walk us now through a midrash. Listen to the beauty. He says, לא היסס לכתוב על מדרש מסוים שפרעה נמלט ולא טבע בים. So there's a famous midrash that says that Paro never drowned. Yes, you've heard that midrash? So he said, שזו דת יחיד. This is just, it's a midrash, but it's only one opinion. And the text shows us otherwise. Why? It says very, very clearly, v'nier Paro v'chelo b'yam suf. The Paro and all his chariots, they drowned. The water covered them completely. Who was left?
No one.
Nothing was left. Nobody. He says, וזה בעקבות הרב אבן עזרא, בפירושו הקצר בשמות, עיון שם. He says, go look over there. כמה היה המדרש הנ"ל פשוט וידוע אצלנו בג'רבה. תוכיח העובדה שבו הסבירו זרות אחד בדקדוק בשירת הים. He said, when we were growing up, everybody taught us this midrash that, of course, Paro, he survived, and later on, I'm sure you've heard this, there are already wings to this story. Later, he went to Tarshish, and he ends up becoming the king of Nineveh, and so, he says, but this is a dat yachid, this is one opinion, and it's not accurate, because the text tells us otherwise. The text tells us everybody died, everybody drowned. He said, but when I was growing up, we for sure knew the opposite. We knew that for sure Paro survived, so much so that he says the following. He says, there's proof to this. What? In Shirat Hayam, we say the following. It says, Mi chamocha be'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Who's so great like you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So the first one, chamocha harishona. Rachel, you're going to love this. He says, chamocha, who is like you? Now he's giving us a lesson on diktuk. He says, chamocha harishona, hachaf rifuya kedin beged kefet, achar, okay. וכמוха השנייה, הכף דגושה שלא כדין. He says it's something very strange. You have the word mi kamocha twice, but the first time you say mi kamocha, the second time you say mi kamocha. He's giving you the diktuk behind it. But then he says in Jerba, הסבירו, how did they explain this to us? שזה היה מצבו של פרעה בטבעו במצולות בלב ים. That this is really a reflection of what was happening to Paro when he was drowning in the Yam Suf. What happened? כי המים ירדו לגרונו עמוק, ורצה להודות ולחזור בתשובת ולומר מי כמוך, הכף דגושה, ולא יכול, כי המים עמדו בגרונו, ויצא לו שתי כפים רחובו, אולם אחר כך נתקבלה תשובתו, ויצא בנס, ואז סיים מי כמוך בדגש נהדר בקודש. כאמור, מדרש זה, so I'm going to explain it to you now. He says, In the verse, Mi chamocha be'elim Adonai, mi kamocha neder b'kodesh, you say this in the Az Yashir all the time, every single day. So he's explaining the grammatical side of why it doesn't seem correct. He says, but so much so we believe the Midrash that Paro came back to life, that what happened? Paro's busy drowning. You ever see somebody drown? They're drinking all the water. Blup, 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 blup. Right? I once in my life decided to go snorkeling. Hashem Yishmor. I never drank so much sea salt water in my life. If you thought Karpas was bad, I drank the whole ocean. I never want to go snorkeling. So what happens? Paro's drowning, and he's trying to say, mi kamocha, but because the water's going into his mouth, he's going, mi cha 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 cha. So he says, mi chamocha. And then finally, HaKadosh Baruch Hu accepts his tshuva. He spits out all the water. He walks to the sand. Now he could say, kamocha. He said, but that's not normal. But that's what we learned because we had to make the Midrash fit. He says, ויותר מזה, מספרי בנו רבי משה ז"ל. Oh, he says, כאמור, מדרש זה לא נתקבל בבית מדרשו של רבי שאול זצ"ל. You can imagine that this interpretation was not accepted in the Bet Midrash of Rabbi Shaul. ויותר מזה, בספרי בנו, and more than that, in the books of his own son, רבי משה ז"ל, לכן יש ערך רב לסיפורים הכתובים. Okay, שכם אחד על פני שמות. He said, these are not the stories you're going to find recorded over there, because the stories that were recorded needed to be accurate. They needed to be truthful, not built on somebody's imagination that you decided to live in. ואביא כאן, and he said, I'm going to bring over here עוד כמה דוגמאות של סיפורים דמיוניים שלא היו ולא נבראו. I want to bring you a few more stories, he says. They never happened. כגון, מה שמספרים חסידים על בעל ספר חרדים. The story that Hasidim tell about the author of Sefer Charedim, Rabbi Eliezer, no? Elazar Askari, who is the author of, or Azikri. Askari or Azikri. Elchanan, what is he the author of? Okay, Sefer Charedim, Ma'od. Which song that we sing? Yafeh. Of Yedid Nefesh, the author of Yedid Nefesh. They say about him, Chas v'shalom, Shaya Am Haaretz, that he was just a simple fool. V'shamash bebet hakneset, and he was the janitor who came to clean. V'arizal rakad ito b'hilula derashbi, and that the Arizal went with him to dance by the Hilula of Rashbi. V'kisheshalu oto talmidav al kach, eshiv shara et Rashbi atzmo roked ito. And when they asked the students about the story, what doesn't make sense. From all the Talmidim, that the Arizal is going to dance with you, dancing with the janitor. And the Arizal answered, yeah, because I see there Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is dancing with him, so how could I not dance with him? Now this story may sound wonderful to some, horribly shameful to others. He said, but there's no record of such a story. ובאמת, רבי אליעזר הזיקרי היה חכם גדול, וחיבר פירוש על ירושלמי ברכות, וספר ארץ חיים. We're talking about somebody who is a tremendous Talmid Chacham. And to make up such a nonsensical story about him, not just is inaccurate, but is really shameful. And we know, this we do know on record, that he actually got smicha from the grandchild of the Rabbi Yaakov Berav. So what kind of stories are we making up over here? Then, another story. You want to hear another good story? מספרים החסידים שהמרשל רבי שלמה לוריה והרמה רצו להחרים חס ושלום, that they wanted to excommunicate the Arizal, שעושה חדשות, ושלח הארי את תלמידו, רבי חיים ויטל, בקפיצת הדרך. So you have to understand, the Arizal, and in a minute I'm going to tell you, he didn't just jump countries, but also timelines. He sent his, okay, Rabbi Shlomo Luria and the Rama wanted to excommunicate the Ari for things that he was saying and teaching. So the Arizal from Tzmat sent his Talmid, his student, Rabbi Chaim Vital, through a magical carpet, to Poland, to warn them, don't you dare excommunicate the Arizal. ובאמת, בחיי האריזל, זה לא נתפס מה חוכמתו כלל במדינות האשכנז. He says, but how could it be? In the years that the Arizal lived in Tzvat, most of Ashkenaz didn't know about the Arizal. ואפילו בצפת לימד בחוג מצומצם. And even those who in France were learning his work, it was a very specific, small category. ומה להם להחרים אדם שרחוק מהם לא הכירו אותו? והוא ביר גדולה של חכמים וסופרים, ומרן ז"ל בראשם. ומה להם להתערב? How does this story even make sense? You have some people sitting somewhere in Poland and Krakow in Europe, and and they're busy with their vision, seeing what's happening with Arizal and Svat, and somehow have the audacity to say, we're going to be machrim him, we're going to excommunicate him here. The Arizal, in his magical powers, hears this, sees this, understands this, sends his student, Reb Chaim Vital, on a magical carpet to Europe to tell them, don't you dare do this. Wow. I have to tell you, growing up, I heard these stories. I'm like, wow, it's unbelievable. You thought unicorns are cool? וגם מהרש"ל והרמ"א גבה טורה בעיניו כידוע. ובספר החזיונות, we talked about the ספר החזיונות last week, למורנו רבי חיים ויטל, שמזכיר כל הקורות אותו מילדותו, לא הזכיר מזה דבר וחצי. This is something very significant. If you fly in a magic carpet across the world, I'm sure you will tell everybody for the rest of eternity. And somehow Reb Chaim Vital doesn't even record this. ולפלא, על כמה מקובלים בדורנו שמעתיקים סיפור זה כסיפור היסטורי. He said, and it's embarrassing that there are mikubalim, yani, Kabbalists in our generations who record the story as if it's fact. V'chen, sipurei hagolem. He said the same thing as the story of the golem of Prague. Sheyetzer Maharal mi-Prague, hem pri eto shel Rabbi Yehuda Rosenberg keyadua. So it's not the comics that were made out of the golem, who were also, those comics were also made by Jewish people in the, I believe, the early 1900s. But he says, the Maharal mi-Prague never made up the golem. Rather, this is attributed to somebody named Rabbi Yehuda Rosenberg. If you look at footnote 1, we have time? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the footnote, he says, Rabbi Yehuda Yoel Rosenberg, haya mumche lezayef svarim. He was an expert. He was a con artist. He was an expert at ziyuf is forging. He was an expert at forgery. Ubenem sefer Tiferet Maharal. Nara. Mishpala. Mishpala. Is this a Shpala Zayda? Maybe. He made V'gorel Hasirod Lev Tzumach HaGaon V'chen Sefer Chochmat Maharil Miprag Uvosh.
But when I typed up the footnotes, I used OCR, and I see that it's not.
Yeah, no, it's not.
It's not accurate.
Thank you. He says, וביניהם ספר תפארת מהר"ל משפולה וגורל הסיריות לרב צמח גאון וכן ספר חוכמת מהר"ל מפראג, ובו ט"ו ויכוחים בכתב עם הבישופ. He has 15 different conversations where he was confronting the bishop Sylvester, ואת כולם מצא בספריות הקיסר מוויאנה על ידי רבי צבי חיים ספרסין. He just copied and pasted from somewhere else, changed a little bit the storyline, and then wrote it off as his own. רק על פת לחם יפשע גבר, וכנראה היה דחוק לפרנסתו, וכבר הוכיח מסגנון הספר עצמו, שהוא מזויף. Because it's obviously, if you look at the style of the books of the Maharal, and then this other book, Niflaot Maharal, it's obvious that this is a forgery, because there's nothing in common stylistically. He says, I'm judging it favorably. This author needed money. He needed a way to make money. And he realized very quickly that he's great at he was the original ChatGPT. He took your work, he changed a few words around, and then told you it's a brand new thing. שכותב שונים מחדום וגם בספר צמח דוד גנץ, ובחיבורי, okay, לא נזכר, he says, if you look into the actual books written by the students of the Maharal, you find no mention of a golem. You know why? Because he didn't write it. Now,
People believe the stories.
My grandfather used to always tell us, he said, you know, everybody thinks the Maharal of Prague was so great. He said, but really, I'm much greater. And we'd say, Zaidi, why? He said, because the golem, you see, he only made one golem. He couldn't talk and he couldn't walk. He said, me, I made 10 of them and they can walk and talk. Now, yeah, the kids. Vishneim hayu talmidim. He says, if you look into the books of the students of the Maharal, they make no mention of the golem. Because there was no golem. ושניהם היו תלמידים מובהקים של מהר"ל מפראג זצ"ל. וזה דרכם של חכמי האשכנזים, שבודים סיפורי מעשיות מהורי הליבם. He says, unfortunately, this is very common by the intelligent, the Chachamim of Ashkenaz, where from their hearts they have these beautiful ideas. They put it onto papers, but the accuracy and the reality never really mattered. ושמעתי שנכדו של רבי יהודה רוזנברג חי כיום בבני ברק, והוא גם כן מודה בכך. And he said, I checked with the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Rosenberg, the original forger, his grandchild, he confirms that this is all just a forgery that passed off as the world's greatest con. One more footnote. וכן, סיפורי חסידים ארגוני, מינסק ופינס, רבי אדם, רבי קהת, וכולו וכולו וכיוצא בזה. He says, you want to know about the Rebbe of Pinsk and Minsk? He says, כך כתוב בקובץ ישורון, כרך עשירי, סוף עמוד תשס"ב, בשם רבי חיים ליברמן, מזכירו האישי ואיש סודו של הרייץ. He says, if you go to this source, you're going to see again that everything is just subject to somebody's great imagination, but nothing to do with the reality or accuracy of what actually happened. He says another story. וכן מספרים שהרב אור החיים הקדוש נכנס לגוב האריות. They say that the Or HaChaim, Rabbi Chaim Ben Attar, he went into a lion's den. Yeah, he went, like Daniel, very good. He went into the lion's den, ונתחלף להם ברבי יהודה בן עטר, עין בשם הגדולים, חלק א' בערכו, ושהכיר 10 השבטים, and over there he's in the lion's den, and he meets the 10 tribes, ואין מזה רמז או רמיזה בספרי החידה. The problem is in the books of the Chida, Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai, who is a student of Rabbi Chaim Ben Attar and one of our greatest historians, you find no reference to this story. Nor do you find B'chachmei Morocco ve'Eretz Yisrael Bizmano, neither in Morocco nor in Israel, the two places that Rabbi Chaim Ben Attar actually lived, you find no record of such a story. V'ayen l'maran achida b'sefer midbar kdemot, שמזכיר כמה ספרים המאומתים עניין 10 השבטים, כגן אלדד, הדני ועוד, והוסיף שרק כתב באוצר המעמד של כבוד קדושת, what is that word, רגב? You have over there? רגיו. ורתומים בו רבני ירושלים המקובל, מערי צמח ומערי בן גד. He says, you do find in the books of the Chidah different references to the shvatim from a long time ago, but nothing to do with Rabbi Chaim Ben Attar. There is no such record. Where are you? ואם הדבר היה בימיו עם רבנו חיים בן עטר, שהכיר אותו פנים אל פנים, ולמד בישיבותו בירושלים כידוע, מה לו להזכיר שמו הרחוקה לפני 100 שנה? If the Chidah knew a story about the Or HaChaim HaKadosh going into a lion's den, meeting the 10 shvatim, why would he have to go back to hundreds of years before to a story when this is a story about his rabbi? It's that much cooler to write. וידוע כי מרן החידה היו עיניו והאוזניו פקוחות לקלוט כל חידוש ושמוע כנראה מסבריו. It's obvious that the Chidah recorded every detail. So such a great story for sure wouldn't have slipped his mind. ודבר כזה אילו אירע בימיו ודאי לא נעלם ממנו. It can't be, if you're going to tell me what could I tell you? The Chidah just didn't remember the story. He didn't know. That's not true. If you look at the tales of the Chidah, he is so accurate down to the last detail that there's no way that such a significant story he just forgot about. אלא שהיה את הכישרון הטובה על אחינו האשכנזים, המציאה והולידה סיפורים רבים חדשים לבקרים. ומעין זה הסיפור על המלך של מרוקו שנפגש עם רבי חיים בן עטר ביתו והיה בר מזלו וכולו. He says, I hate to tell it to you, but this, our brothers, the Ashkenazim, they had a really beautiful pen that wrote very beautiful things. And the stories that they made up, Chadashim Labkarim, and they're so new that even the people who are in the story never heard about them. Now, these are the stories. Now, I want to look at footnote 3 a minute. I don't know that I need it.
I think footnote 3 is accurate, because I think I typed it up from the book.
He says, Va'od, I don't have it here, no. No.
I have in the very last page.
Oh, you're right. That's why. You think it's accurate? Yeah, I think so. Va'od, he says, אציין כאן בעיה נוספת מהמצויה בסיפורים על חכמי ישראל. I want to note another problem. שמחליפים בין חכמים שונים שנקראו בשם אחד, וכגון בספר ממלכת כהנים, שהחליף רבי אברהם כהן, שחי לפני שנת ת"ק, עם רבי אברהם כהן, שחי בתרל"ד, רבי ססי כהן, שחי בתקכ"ו, עם רבי ססי הכהן, שחי בתרס"ה, ומילתא כגון דעליו מילתא זוטראי. וכידוע שהשגיאות כאלו חיבר מרן החידה. He says, I want to tell you another problem over here. Very often the stories, not only historically did they never happen, but the author never took the time to figure out who is the story actually being told about. So much so that they will switch. How many Avraham Cohens are there? Many. But if you're quoting one Avraham Cohen who lived in this century, but you mistook it for the one that's 10 centuries later, you have a completely skewed story. And he said, unfortunately, I see this time and time again, where there are two characters with the same names. They couldn't have lived in a more different generation, but the author who's making up the story doesn't know that.
The last sentence will only tell you what the rabbi was.
And he says what? he says, שמעתי מתלמיד חכם אחד זצ"ל בחו"ל, שהיו לו 3 פנקסים גדולים חידושי דרשות ואגדות, שלא ידע אם שמשון הגיבור קדם לרשב"י או להפך, וכדאי ביזיון. He says, I once unfortunately had the unfortunate disaster of meeting a rabbi who lived outside of Eretz Yisrael. And he had 3 notebooks, not notebooks, 3 big notebooks that were so full. And yet he didn't know, when I asked him, when Shimshon HaGibor came in Jewish history, he wasn't sure if he came before or after Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. You understand? It's like telling me you're not sure if President Washington came before or after President Trump. Unless you know nothing about American history, that is not an error you can make. It is a colossal error in your understanding of the linear progression of history. Okay. מה עוד? כללו של דבר. I want to maybe jump.
Maybe you should do this one paragraph and do the second half right quick.
Yeah. He says, מאידך. No. כללו של דבר. כללו של דבר. He said, I want to give you a rule of thumb. כל סיפור הנכתב בריחוק זמן ומקום מפי סופרים שלא הכירו אותו מעולם ולא נמסר מאיש לאיש ולא נכתב בפנקסים ישנים, על פי רוב הוא פרי דמיונו של המספר ונכתב לשם ספרות בעלמא. He said, I want to give you a good rule of thumb. If there's something that's written that is distant from when it happened, the place that happened, the people who recorded it, the writer didn't recognize or know explicitly those who the story happened to, or those who faithfully transmitted it, if they didn't have manuscripts to back it up, by and large, those stories you should already know, they're just figments of somebody's imagination, but they never actually happened. And it's right, it's appropriate that anybody who publishes לחקור הדק היטב את הסיפורים הנאמרים מפה לאוזן, על מה עדניהם הוטבעו, כי אין זה עיתון שיקראו בו היום, ולמחר יושלח במסגרת הפסולת לסל וחסל, על דברים שיעמדו לימים רבים. Anybody who's going to go out to print, I'm giving you a word of caution. Do your research. Check, double check, triple check, because if you're going to publish something, and tomorrow it's going to be obvious that everything you wrote is nonsense, that everything you published is inaccurate, your books will end up in the dustbins like all those who came before you and tried stylistically to make the same errors. מאידך, זה ישנה גישה השוללת לגמרי סיפורי ניסים ונפלאות, שאין זה עיקר ואין לזה ערך. Maybe this is, I should do next week because it's already a different problem.
There's a whole nother swing you're taking us. It's explaining why the Sfaradim didn't tell stories. The first part you already got.
It's going to take me longer than, I have a half hour. It will take me. Okay, מאידך, let me see. So he says, ישנה גישה השוללת לגמרי סיפורי ניסים ונפלאות שאין זה עיקר ואין לזה ערך, וממליצים על זה. He says, I want to recommend to stay away from this genre completely. Why? It says in the pasuk, Otot umoftim ba'admat b'nei Cham. All the miracles and the wonders and the nonsensical storytelling of all the imagination, it doesn't belong to us. Ba'admat b'nei Cham. It's from different nations. But us, we are very particular with our accuracy, not only of our texts, but also our oral traditions, the things we say, the stories we tell, the imaginations we entertain need to be accurate. They could be powerful, They could be moving. They could be life-altering, but they can't be false. Ulam, lo ken hayta dat Chazal. He said, so you would think that, so should we cut out this genre maybe completely? He says, no, you find Chazal have a place for imagination. ובפרק, החכמים, in פרק ג' של מסכת תענית, המכונה, it's called פרקה דחסידאי, it's full of מלא מופתים רבים שעשו התנאים והאמוראים. If you open up to מסכת תענית, in פרק ג', you're going to find wondrous stories of our תנאים and האמוראים. וכן באגדות רבות לאין מספר, ולא היו בעיני מסדרי התלמוד, כדברים של מה בכך חלילה. And they didn't think to cut this out. So unlike the natural inclination to say, no, I want to be a purist. I want to stay so far away from all these imagination stories that I'm just going to record the hard, dry facts as much as I can, and I'm going to leave all the rest to the side. He says it's not accurate. You find even our Chachamim have codified miracles, wonders. וידוע כי אין כסיפורי מופתים אמיתיים להלהיב לב השומע לאהבת ביראת אדוני. And it is known that the way to turn on somebody's heart, go into a classroom. Try to teach them history by just giving them facts, figures, numbers. You will have everybody sleeping or throwing paper airplanes because they're going to be so bored. You build a story in somebody's head, forever they're going to remember. You can't take away the fact that storytelling, that drawing on wondrous things is something good. ורבנו היי גאון, אחרון הגאונים, בזמן וראשם במעלה, התראם בתשובותיו הרב שמואל בן חפני גאון וחבריו, שנטו יותר מדי אחרי הפילוסופיה, ואמרו שאין הקדוש ברוך הוא עושה ניסים, רק לנביאים בלבד. In fact, if I be High Gaon calls out his colleagues and says, no, it's not right what you're saying. You're going too much to the side of the philosophers who are such rationalists, who are trying to be such purists, but it's not true. ומכחישים בכל מעשי ניסים המפורשים בתלמוד ומוצאים אותם מפשוטם. And they say, no, nothing, chas v'shalom, in the Talmud, nothing is accurate, it's not true. The wonders that are being recorded, no, it only happens at the times of the prophets. Anything after that is just made up. Rav Hai Gaon says, not true. Not true. ראה בספר התלמוד, okay, ובימינו התפרסם הרב הקדוש המופלא בניסים. So he brings out, he says there are many, many stories about Rabbi Yisrael Abuchatzera, אשר ממזרח השמש ועד מבואר, יהודים יגידון גודל מעשיו נפלאותיו. He says, I'm telling you personally, now this is Harav Mazuz talking, so not me. He says, there are stories about Rabbi Yisrael Abuchatzera that are so wondrous, and everybody knows them, everybody's verified them. וחילוניים רבים חזרו בתשובה על ידו, and we know that there are thousands that have done teshuvah simply by being connected to him. ויגזור עומד ויקום לו, ועל דרכיו נוגע האור. He says, I'm not dismissing this genre completely. I want you to know that though our Chachamim, the ones who followed Rabbi Chalfon Moshe Kohen, and our ancestors were very careful to be accurate, to record things that were true, to not embellish, to not exaggerate, even if it came at the cost of not being able to entertain the minds of our children and the adults like Achenu Ashkenazim could with their wondrous tongues and writing. Is that there is still a place for stories. There is a place. And I can't tell you that I would cut them all out. Simply, I would tread very carefully.
Maybe I'll finish by reading that's what's going to be next week for the first. Yeah, but unlike me, the Rabbanit doesn't like to take 7 weeks doing introduction. But I'm trying to convince her that we like this introduction and after we'll do it again. She doesn't have to cram it on. But maybe you could tell us one sentence of next week so we know what next week is about.
I think that if we start over the questions of why, right? Why do we find that in one half of the world we have so much rich history of particular genres? We don't find that on the other side of the coin. Rabbi Mazuz is sharing with us some very fundamental differences in our beliefs. And the first one he shared with us today is accuracy. Truth. These are values that trump everything else. And what is accurate and what is true cannot be replaced by that which is popular, by that which is exciting, that which is outlandish, even if the end will be, wow, you know how many people are mitlahev? You know how many people say, I love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Because that story was so unbelievable, it was so crazy. He says, Lo zu haderech, that's not our way. And I want to end off maybe with a little bit of what we're going to start with next week, where he says, Siper li hatzadik hamanoach רבי מיכאל קרפון, ידין, זצ"ל, שפעם שאלו אותו, נכדיו ייבדל לחיים ארוכים. He said, his grandchildren once asked him the following, מדוע רק לאשכנזים יש אדמו"רים ולנו אין? Why is it that only by the Ashkenazi community there are admorim? Admor stands for Adonenu, Morenu, V'Rabbeinu, our great leader, our master, our rabbi. Why are they the only ones who have these tzaddikim and we don't? כי אף פעם לא שמענו עליהם כלום. It's because we never heard about them. V'achen shtei sibut ledavar. He says there are two reasons. The grandson said, I don't know, so why is it that in the Ashkenazi world, they all have these major, today we call them gdoilin. Why don't we have any of them? Why haven't we heard about them on our end? And he says there are two reasons. Those two reasons I want to share with you next week. And I think that those two reasons are going to bring us directly into the next class, which is, okay, so what is that prototype of a chacham that we want to explore, that we need to uncover, because the relevance of the alternative narrative that hasn't been told must be told. On that note, I want to leave you for today. And Be'ezrat Hashem, let you enjoy, revel, think about the words of Harav Mazuz.